Welcome back, everybody. Of course, you know me, Dr. Keith McNally. This is the Question Guy podcast. I'm here with the Zen Rabbit. Lori, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
Which is typically how you are always doing every time we jump on a call or even on social media. One, a smile on your face. Two, you're doing fantastic. Three, you always have something positive or something good to say. So that's a good start to this conversation. However, the Question Guy podcast is about personal transitions. And so you've made a few of them in the past, golly gee, at least 20 years. But we want to focus this conversation on the real pivot that kind of really transformed you into the Zen Rabbit, the person that I see in front of me today. Can we start our conversation on that note?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, where does
Uh,
that start?
it starts 10 years ago this month when my mom passed away from an acute form of leukemia, and she had only been diagnosed with it about 6 weeks prior.
Mhm.
So it was very quick. And when that happened, in the aftermath of it all, I started asking myself the question, do I want to live the next 20 years the same way I lived the last 20? Because she was relatively young, 73,
Mhm.
and had been healthy and vibrant up to that point. And so, you kind of start going, well, if that could happen to her, all of her friends were like, wait a second, what just happened to her? Like, yeah,
So give
crazy.
us some, clue us in. What was your mom like at this point in life? You said, you know, it was a shock that she was even diagnosed, let alone
Mhm.
to pass. So give us some insight into what her behaviors were like, who she was, so that we can appreciate what's going on.
Yeah, she was we talked before we hit record about my being an introvert, and we can get into that, but she was very much an extrovert. She was born under the sign of Leo, so she was very outgoing, and she was the membership director of her quilting guild. She would talk to anybody anywhere and be like, "Hey, are you interested in quilting?" Like whatever it was, she was making friends everywhere. And she was pretty healthy in terms of what she would eat. I mean, she had somewhat of a sugar, I won't say addiction, but she did like chocolate. But for the most part, she was pretty healthy. Like she would go walking, she would walk in the pool, walk on the streets. Like she did not have, she wasn't taking medications. It wasn't like she was, like some people are old 73. She was not old 73. And that's why I use the term vibrant with her.
Mhm. And it's probably a good word to use. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and very had a lot of friends, socially connected, always doing something. Um, yeah, so going back to the addiction part, what she did have was an addiction to buying fabric for quilting. So
Well, we can't blame her for that.
you
So,
can't. Apparently, lots of quilters have this addiction. So
so relatively good health as far as we can
yeah.
tell. Good social network, lots of friends, active, and we'll use the word vibrant. And so being diagnosed with anything would probably come as a shock. And so I know we're going to talk about your perspective. Really quick though, were you able to have a conversation with her to appreciate her perspective? And the reason I'm asking this question is what just happened or what's about to happen in our story and your story changes your life. It
Mhm.
causes you to reflect. And so we really need to dig in to figure out, you know, why. So what was the conversation with your mom like?
She didn't really want to acknowledge that it was the end. I don't
Okay.
think. I mean, she obviously knew. And in the beginning, in the first part, I mean, she was going through treatment and we thought she was getting better.
Mhm.
And then it took a turn and the oncologist was like, yeah, this is not, just overcame her body. So, but she didn't really want to talk about
Okay.
what was happening.
She was in one of a couple of ways, either ready to go or just going to deny it. But this is where everything in your life pivots because nobody wants to lose their mother. We expect it, but
Yeah.
we don't want it to happen. But it took a real, you made some real critical. or I should say, you asked yourself some really critical questions.
Mhm.
What were those questions?
The main question was, do I want to live the next 20 years the same way I lived the last 20?
And why is that important?
Because if I only have 20 left, how do I want to live them?
Okay.
And I'll preface that with the previous 20 were not terrible. They were fine. They were fine. Do I want to continue living my life as everything is fine?
Okay.
Or do I want something better than that?
Okay.
And that's where that question came to mind. And if I do want something different, what does that look like?
So talk to us. What
Yeah.
were your answers to that question?
So it's not like the question came to my mind and the next day I was like, okay, everything is changing. I'm doing everything differently. It actually took me several years because anybody who's joining this club of a mom specifically passing away, don't, you cannot comprehend what it's like if you have not experienced it. I didn't have any idea. And and it takes however long it takes to even get back on what feels like solid ground. And so it took me 4 years to leave my marriage, my 22-year marriage, which I had known, I mean, for even more before my mom passed away. We both kind of had, we were working really hard to keep it together. But because it was fine. It was fine. But it wasn't really serving either one of us. And we both knew it, but we didn't, neither one of us wanted to be the one to initiate coming apart. And like I said, we just, I mean, we were committed. We wanted to make it work. And just, we're two different people, both good people, still good, like very amicable, but not still good for each other.
Mhm.
But it took 4 years. And in those 4 years, his mom passed away to, I guess, get the courage to initiate it, which is what I had to do because he wasn't going to do it. So I had to initiate. And that actually was harder than my mom passing away. That was the hardest thing I've ever freaking done in my life, was initiate that.
Initiate the conversation, initiate the
Initiate
divorce, initiate.
initiate the separation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like start the conversation and then go through with it and actually move out and leave, and then processing all of the emotions and introspection that comes with that.
Mhm.
Because again, it was amicable. We didn't hate each other. I mean, that might have made it easier, but that's not how it was. So yeah, and I think the reason it was so much harder is because I did initiate it. I could not control my mom's disease and her passing. I had to accept that. But this was something I was doing.
It's still a transition point, and
Mhm.
I speak to a lot of grief coaches, and so you're going through a lot of traumatic experiences, and I'm not going to dive into that unless you want
Mhm.
to.
Mhm.
Um, your life is changing, and your life is changing in both from the outside, things are being put into your life, and now from the inside, you are making critical, intentional choices for things to be different.
Yeah.
That's got to be difficult. It has to be difficult. It is difficult.
Yeah, yeah, like I said, when things are kind of thrust upon you like someone's passing, it's difficult, and I think it's easier to accept because you don't have control.
Mhm.
But when you have to take control, when you have to be responsible for something, which I believe we all have responsibility for, making ourselves happy or finding our own joy or whatever it is, we have the responsibility for that. And at the same time, it's not always easy and it's not always comfortable.
Mm. That's a good word to use. It's not comfortable.
No.
So what happens next? So mom, a marriage
Yeah.
in 4 years. What's going on now?
Yeah. So I moved out and didn't just move out, I moved all the way across the country to the
Okay.
other side, to the other coast,
So where did you start?
Virginia.
Okay, so you moved to California. Where did
I
you?
did move, I
Okay,
moved to
okay.
California because I had lived there years ago. And so I still had some friends who were there. So I thought, let me go there because at least I'll know some people.
Mhm.
And what I didn't realize exactly at the time I was doing it was I really needed that perspective. Like I needed that physical distance to get perspective on that relationship. I mean, I say 22-year marriage, but we were together for almost 30 years.
Mm.
So pretty much all of my adult life almost.
A lot of time invested. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so to have the ability to be that far away and to look at it, I don't even know if I can say objectively because I was a participant. So how objective can I be? But it did give me the ability to say, oh, I see where I maybe could have done things differently.
Maybe coulda.
Maybe could have. But there's a guy I follow on Instagram. His name is Peter Crone, and he's known as the mind architect. And he has this quote that what happened happened and couldn't have happened any other way because it didn't.
Interesting perspective.
Yes. And so it's that is somewhat comforting because if things could have been different, they would have. They just couldn't have in this incarnation or in this,
And
in
and
this
what?
timeline.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say now I forget the word, but I had another person on the
Yeah.
call. Dimension is the word she
Right, right,
uses. In
right.
this
Yes.
dimension, this is how it's working,
Yeah,
and this is
exactly.
your reality.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And so it helped me get some perspective on that and but it still took a really long time. And even to today, sometimes it pops up. There's still guilt and shame around this because I couldn't uphold my promise, my commitment. And so I would say I'm 95% worked through
Okay. You mean to
that.
as of today?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But sometimes, like I said, it still sometimes will pop up that I'll feel like, oh, maybe if I had done this, it could have worked out, or if I
Mhm.
hadn't chosen that option, it could have worked out.
And we all live with
Yeah.
those fears, those regrets, those like you said, those woulda coulda moments.
Mhm.
Maybe if I turn right, Bugs Bunny says I should have turned to left, made a left turn in Albuquerque, his life would
Right.
have been different in every
Yeah.
episode.
Yes.
But like your guru just said, it didn't. This
Mhm.
is your life, so you had to make sense of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so even when I do think back and think, wow, what if I don't spend a lot of time there because I know that everything that has happened up to this point has led me to where I am now. And I'm pretty happy with who I am now.
Well, I want to go back just a bit because I want to get to you are a Zen rabbit. I need to figure that out. I don't know what a Zen rabbit is. And so we have to
Okay.
clarify what that is. But earlier in the call, earlier in our conversation, you kept on using the word, my life is fine. And we use words intentionally. I've learned
Mhm.
that over time. And, as a middle-aged man myself, I've learned to use words intentionally. You are using the word fine intentionally. Why were you
Yeah.
using that word fine intentionally to define your life?
Because mm, because it's not terrible and it's not great. It's just mediocre.
Okay. But
That
you
to
didn't
me
want to
is
be
what
mediocre anymore.
right. Right.
Okay.
But to me, that's what the word fine means.
Okay.
It's mediocre. In our society, a lot of people use it because they've been conditioned. How are you? I'm fine. Like it doesn't mean anything.
And now
And now I don't use that word anymore. Well, I use it
you
because my
use it to
podcast,
explain.
yeah, yeah. But in describing myself, I would never say that.
Okay. How do you
It's always
define
something
yourself?
better. How do I define myself
Yeah. How do you
in
explain yourself when you talk to somebody else?
as in how I feel or who I
When
am?
you introduce yourself, because if you're not introducing yourself, hi, my name is Lori the Zen Rabbit, and I'm fine. That's
Mhm.
not what you say.
No, I would introduce how would I introduce myself? I mean, when you asked me at the top of the call, how I'm fantastic.
And what does fantastic look like to you?
There's joy in my life. There's connection. There's good energy. Like
Mhm.
there's a flow of good energy.
I like it.
And uh there's a lot of connectedness,
Mhm. Now let's
social
talk about
connection.
how you got there. How did you get there? And how did you get the title of Zen Rabbit?
All right. Well, the social connectedness has always been a part. It's an innate part of who I am. I have friends that we were in the crib together. So I have maintained those relationships. That's just part of who I am. The
Mhm.
Zen Rabbit part, I started my first business, my first entrepreneurial venture in 2003. And I was making and marketing a product called the Gratitude Cookie based on a family recipe, kind of a cross between a butter and a sugar cookie.
Okay.
And as someone with many years of marketing background, I thought, how do I position this company and this product? And it was as a way for businesses to say thank you to their clients and referral sources.
So cool.
Yeah, really cool. And so I ran that business for 11 years and I couldn't quite scale it the way I would have liked to. I decided to shut it down and just because the time and effort that was going into it, the amount of money was the payoff, the reward, the return on the investment was not worth it anymore.
Mhm.
And so I had decided to shut it down right at the same time that my mom was diagnosed, not because of that, but at the same time. So that happened also 10 years ago,
Okay.
and shut that business down. I mean, the timing actually turned out to be good because since I wasn't still running the company, then I could manage all of the aftermath of my mom's passing. So that company was called Zen Rabbit Baking Company
Okay.
because when I was a baby, my mom bought a stuffed rabbit and put it in the crib and quickly realized that she could take all the other stuffed animals out of the crib, but if the rabbit wasn't in there, I wasn't sleeping. And so as I got older, I would rub this rabbit's ears for comfort. You know how little kids have like blankets or whatever. I had this rabbit and I would rub her ears. And there's a picture on my website under the about section that shows me with I'm about 2.5 years old with this rabbit in my hand. And you can see when I'm rubbing her ears, I'm in some Zen meditative state.
Okay.
And so when I was handing these cookies out to people as samples, they would be like, oh my gosh, this is so good. This reminds me of baking in the kitchen with grandma. And then they are immediately transported back to their Zen blissful place of being in the kitchen with grandma. And so I thought, hey, again, as a marketer, let me use the name Zen Rabbit because nobody is ever going to forget it. And they don't.
And you can't because it's right there on your Zoom name. So it's all good.
Right, that too. So after I shut that company down and I started my next entrepreneurial venture, tried to name it something else, but it quickly became apparent that people didn't necessarily remember my name, but they remembered Zen Rabbit. So I had to take back the name Zen Rabbit and go to like Zen Rabbit 2.0. And now I'm on like Zen Rabbit 3.0 or whatever. Like the name Zen Rabbit is just going to be my business name pretty much forever. It is my license plate on my car. And
And that's okay. I mean,
yeah,
it's not only your brand, it's who you are. It's how we
yeah,
relate to you. And so that's
yeah,
perfect.
exactly.
And it's also part of your personality and character. And so that
Yeah,
makes it more valuable to everybody. Right?
yeah. It's a perfect brand.
So what exactly is a Zen rabbit? Where do you find comfort in? And you can't go back to your, being two.
Yeah.
How do you find comfort in life now?
Sometimes it's still that rabbit.
Do you still
I
have the
will
rabbit?
admit. Okay. I will.
Because if you do, because this isn't fair, because when I was younger, it was an elephant. It was a
Okay.
blue elephant that I had forever. I don't even remember the day that my mom probably threw it. And the reason I
Uh-huh.
say it is because it's so important because it was losing its stuffing. So it's been
Mm-hmm.
sewed up several
Mm-hmm.
times.
Yep, she was
Um,
too. Mm-hmm.
and it was a red, white, it was primarily blue, but it was a red, white, and blue red, white, and blue. And the ears, and so one of the, and this is how I so loved it. One of the ears was like a regular like ear, and then the other ear was oblong. It was, and I don't know why they
Hmm.
didn't put two of the same ears on this elephant,
Yeah.
but it's one's regular, one's this really oblong. And so it always reminded me, and I'm 54 at this point, and so watching, all the Christmas specials, and there's this one where Santa Claus and the Misfit toys, and
Oh yeah.
this just kind of fits into the Misfit toy category, which really
Uh-huh.
categorizes my life. But
Uh-huh.
I always held on to this. I had it forever.
Yeah.
Now nobody calls me an elephant or and I called it Trunky, so it was just kind of weird.
Okay.
So I totally get the idea that we're holding on to something that's completely valuable that nobody else will get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So same, she got sewed up lots of times. She had a skin transplant, I think, at one point where my mom re-sewed her entire body. But what she exists as now is strings that will fit in the palm of my hand.
Oh.
And I think one eye. That is all. Nobody can tell me, and I don't remember how she went from a full rabbit to a bunch of strings. Like there was no transition. It was this and then this.
Right.
But that's what I have. And she's in a little pouch. And when I am especially stressed, which does happen, even though people are surprised that I get stressed, I will take her out of her little pouch and just hold her in my hand.
Well,
So
that's
there, now you have a true confession. Her name is Mary. Um,
which is perfect. And that's absolutely perfect. Now, your story a while ago you moved to California, but you are no longer in California. I know that because
no,
at least the
yeah,
last time that we talked, you weren't in California.
no,
You are a nomad
yeah. So I
by
left. Go ahead. I
by way of personal declaration. You called yourself a nomad.
Yes. So I spent 13 months in California, then I moved back to Virginia because that's where I consider home. And so I moved back to Northern Virginia. Um, and was there until October of 2023, so 6 months ago. I decided that I wanted to live more adventurously. I look at life as it's an experiment and it's an adventure. And let me go see what's out there. They were raising the rent on my apartment again. And I thought, I don't really want to pay this much for
Right.
this size of an apartment.
So just to
The,
put in perspective, Northern Virginia, Maryland, Washington, D.C. area,
yep,
that area.
yep,
Okay.
DC metro area.
Okay.
Hmm. And I didn't know where else I'd want to live though. Like where would I want to go? And so I thought I'm just going to give up my apartment and I'm going to travel around and see and explore where might I want to go. And then I came up with the idea. I don't even know. I woke up one morning and the idea popped into my head of house sitting. And so I started Googling house sitting and I found some websites that talked about house sitting. And there's a membership website called trustedhousesitters.com. And I signed up for it. It's a
Hmm.
membership site. I signed up. People post when they need somebody to sit for their house. Usually it's sitting for animals, like dog sitting, cat sitting. And I signed up and that's what I've been doing. And so mostly cats. I prefer cats. I've done some dogs. It just reconfirmed. I love all animals, but I'm really a cat person.
And do you still have a cat? Your
No,
okay.
no. So both of my cats passed away in 2022 within
Okay.
5 months of each other, which is why I had the freedom now to do this.
Okay. Well, one of my
Yeah.
condolences because I'm a cat lover and I've got one in the house now who lets me know everything that I need to do in life.
Yes. Yes. Yes, servant. Open the door. Feed me. Yes. Hmm.
So as a nomad, how does what does that give you? I know it gives you some freedom, but doesn't it,
Yeah.
I'm a homebody, so I
Uh-huh.
can't imagine what that would really look like. But and you talked to me earlier that you are an introvert, so I'm kind of thinking this is not really, how does that work?
Yeah. Well, it works because I I'm not sure why exactly it doesn't, like, it bothers a lot of people when I tell them I'm living this way because they can't imagine it, or they say, "Wow, you're so courageous. I can never do that." And I
Can't,
don't really
can't.
see it. Yeah. I don't see it as an act of courage necessarily, although I guess I could see maybe how it is because I gave up. I sold most of my furniture. I put everything else that I had left in a 5 by 10 storage unit, and even that was not packed full. And then I have what I have in my car, which is not an SUV. And it's not a
Okay.
big car. It's not like I don't look like the Beverly Hillbillies.
Okay. Because
So
people would ask, people who will be watching and listening, like she's got to have an RV or something. Like
nope.
that's the only way to go from place to place and then do a
No.
house sit.
Yeah.
That's not the ticket at all.
No, I'm driving a Genesis Coupe, which is more a sporty car. Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
So, right, not even 4 doors. Uh, but I love this car. And yeah, I mean, I have my clothes, I have my books. Really, if I have my computer and my microphone, I can work from anywhere. And so I've been traveling around mostly the southeast part of the United States because I don't want to be doing cross country treks,
Okay.
and that's hard.
Hmm.
And especially because I'm by myself and I'm doing all the driving myself.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, so mostly Virginia and the Carolinas, some Georgia and Florida, but uh, yeah, I I am an introvert at heart. And when I say that, that means that when I need to recharge my batteries, I want to sit alone and do a meditation or read a book or do some coloring, something like that.
Hmm.
But most people see me out in the world and would never guess that I'm an introvert because they don't understand really what those terms mean. And
Hmm.
it doesn't mean that I'm a wallflower or that I'm a hermit or any of those. Like, I love interacting with people. I crave it. In fact, it may be one of the things that drives me off of nomad life
Hmm.
is because I am really craving a sense of community and I don't have that. I don't belong anywhere right now.
Yeah, I totally get it. And that's kind of been my Achilles heel at the same time is because my whole life it's kind of been centered and reclusive, I guess is the best word. And
Hmm.
through those bad experiences, not being able to build my community around me, I made two suicide attempts in
Hmm.
2013 and 2021. And so from that and COVID and the quarantine, it's been my intention to build a community around me. And I've done that, which is
Hmm.
good. So
Yeah.
by nature, I'm an introvert. I can say very, very clearly, and I do. So anybody who's watching, what I do on social media knows that I spend the first 4 hours of my day, literally 4 hours hiking 12 miles. Um, I don't listen to music.
Yeah.
I'm literally listening to the sound of the air around me. I can be very comfortable in that space, which is all me. And so I
Hmm.
totally get it. But at the same time, I have these conversations because connecting with people, having those real conversations, and figuring out that there's other people out there who have stories like you
Yeah.
is so, so important. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, we as humans are wired to connect interpersonally. We have not evolved past that, no matter how much technology we have and how much technology we immerse ourselves in. We have not evolved past needing to interact with other humans.
So I've got to ask you, um, being a nomad can't be, it's good for what you got to do, but how do you pay the bills? What do you
Well,
do?
because I have my business. I mean, I can still run my business.
So what is your business?
I am on a mission to teach the world to be calm and grounded no matter what's going on around them. And
I need some of that.
I do I do that a lot. I teach the concepts, I teach tools and techniques using the concepts of gratitude and meditation and acceptance. And my focus right now is going into corporations and organizations and on under the guise of well-being, because that's a buzzword right now, and
I hope
teaching.
not, because it's real. It's a reality.
It is a reality. It just seems to be really more popular now that corporations are willing to recognize that well-being is a thing,
Okay.
like an important thing.
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
Yeah.
And so they hired the Zen Rabbit, and she comes in and does what?
Workshops
Cool.
on how to on teaching these tools and techniques that to me are like so basic, but so many people don't even know they exist. Like they don't know about the concepts of gratitude. They don't know how to look at a situation that is maybe looks like something's on fire in front of them. And so they just become frantic and on fire. But how do
Hmm.
you not? How do you stay calm and grounded, even though everything, your circumstances don't have to dictate your behavior or your feelings or your thoughts? But most people don't understand that. And
Yeah.
they don't have the tools or and therefore the ability to change how they're thinking. And it is a matter of literally rewiring your brain, which is not as difficult as it sounds.
Agreed. And so for me, two things. I wrote a book, Walking
Hmm.
the Path of Leader's Journey. And in that book, I talk about 6 pillars of accomplishment and alignment and values and intention and sustainability and collaboration. And so it's from the chaos that I was in, for my,
Hmm.
especially for my second suicide attempt in back in 20, but I also had a heart attack. So
Right.
I always
Lots
say
of
that,
chaos.
going back to, there's this movie called Final Destination. Now it's one of those series of movies that, like Halloween or Friday the 13th, where, the evil villain, whatever that looks like, is hunting you and haunting you until it gets you. And so I
Mm,
have had three, strikes against my life. And now in the batting average, if I get 3 strikes, I'm down, but I'm still kicking.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm still alive. I'm still kicking. And so at this point in time, I'm winning the battle against death.
Hmm.
But now I'm winning it intentionally. And so just like you, in your way, through meditation, gratitude, and, being grounded, I talk to people about what it means to live with intention, purpose, meaning,
Yeah.
value. Yeah.
Right. And when you say intention, it is similar in that you get to intentionally choose how to respond to a situation instead of reacting from reptilian brain.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the most powerful things we can do is
Absolutely.
live with
Think
that
about
intention. Yeah.
if more people knew how to do this, think about what the world would look like. It'd be very different.
Agree.
And
I
so that's why
so
I'm so passionate about this.
I still love this conversation. I don't want it to end. Is there something that you would want to share, give? And so this is what I typically do at the end of a question guide conversation, is that because you're coming in with such power, such energy, such excitement, you got to leave something powerful with the audience. And so today, what would that be? Because, and not just, hey, connect with me on LinkedIn.
No, no.
Give them something to do, something to empower them today so that they could change their lives tomorrow.
Mm, yeah. The first thing I want people to know is that you're not alone. There are other people. There's always someone who would be willing to support you. And there's nothing wrong with you. Whatever, however, whoever you are, there is nothing wrong with you. And thirdly, there's no such thing as failure. Failure is another word for it didn't turn out the way you expected.
Mhm.
That's all. That's all failure is. If you can change your mindset around that or your view of what failure is, it frees you up to continue moving forward.
There is no better way to end this conversation than with that. There is no failure. Zen Rabbit, thank you for joining me in this conversation. For those of you who've been watching and listening, I'll see you next time. Take care.